Hello out there, and today we are going to be talking about a new knife from Bestech, and this is the first Bestech that I have had on the channel in quite some time. This one is called the Freefall, and first of all, I have to thank the people at Bestech for supplying this knife to the Apex Pass Around group. That is how I was able to get my hands on it. They supply a lot of knives to the Pass Around, and the way that Pass Around works is you pick and choose the ones you want to get your hands on to check out. And this has been the first one in quite a while that I said, yeah, I really want to see this knife. And so that's why it's here. So yeah, definitely appreciate getting this opportunity. This is a pretty refined piece, guys. It is from the designer Jason Clark. It is based on one of his customs. And when I saw the picture of it, I just really liked the look of the scales, and I liked the blade shape, and I was really curious about this. This almost like kind of double guard that you would see on a stiletto style blade. And we're going to get into that and talk about my preferences and if that fits in with it and who this knife is going to be for. And also do some comparisons to some things that are maybe just a little bit even more pricey to see what kind of manufacturing and quality that we're getting from Bestech here. All right, but let's just get started with some size comparisons. The comparisons chosen for the day, as you can see with this knife having right around a 2-inch cutting edge, we have some smaller knives to talk about. We're going to bring out the Mini Griptilian first and foremost, as you can see, which is a larger knife. Let's see if we can find a squid. I started the video before I had a squid handy, but another one that we're taking a look at is the CRKT Ripple. This is the large Ripple. Let's grab a small Ripple, if you are familiar with the Ripple family, to give a little bit of comparison there. These tips are lined up, as you can see. The Ripple is a little bit longer in cutting edge. The best example, and we're going to come back to Chris Reeve knives throughout the video, maybe just once or twice, but there is my small Inkosi. So if we get this completely lined up, you can see that the overall length here is almost identical, about a 1/4 inch longer on the CRK and about a 1/4 inch longer, if that, in cutting edge. So we have that. The Sage 5. And then finally, it's a rule, the PM2, which doesn't really make much sense to do that comparison, but hell, we're going to do it anyway. All right, taking a look at the weight real quick before we move forward. This is a pretty lightweight knife. We've got the titanium bolsters and liner, and then we also have carbon fiber on this scale. And it doesn't look like a carbon fiber that we'd be familiar with, so we'll talk about that at length in just a bit. 2.8 ounces on this knife. Not necessarily a bad weight. It's not super duper light when you think about the number, but it's perfectly fine. You will see there is a little bit of a chunk here, so we do have maybe a little bit more material than you would expect on a knife that is this short. So next to the mini grip, and the mini grip, as you guys know, is a little bit of a has a little bit of a bulge here, and it is comparable, maybe even a little bit fatter in some parts. So definitely something to be aware of there. And again, we will get back to that. When it comes to Jason Clark, I'm not that familiar with his designs, but the reason why I'm aware of him at all, being a guy who doesn't have customs, is that he's based just about 40 miles away from where I live. So I've seen some of his knives. I believe I stopped at his booth and handled a couple of them at Blade Show 2019. But, the memories are hard to come by. There's a lot going on, obviously, at a show like that. But I really like a lot of the stuff that he does. I'm going to insert some pictures of some of his designs that I really, really think are awesome, that if I ever had the money or the inclination to get into customs, some of those things would be pretty close to the top of the list, because he does some things that aren't all that embellished. And you guys know I don't love the Damascus kind of stuff, and I don't love just like the over-the-top kind of like handle embellishments. He does some of that stuff, but he also has some really nice toned down, just high quality handmade knives. So super cool stuff from him. That said, of all his designs, this is probably amongst my least favorite of the ones that I just like went through, after getting this knife. And the reason for that is really just this spot right here. As far as functionality and what I'm looking for in a knife, it just really isn't my thing. Right? And so what we have is like I said, almost a stiletto kind of look. There isn't 100% symmetry, so these two guards aren't the same size. You can open the knife with the flipper, or you can actually like front flip it too, and that's pretty cool. But from an ergonomic standpoint and from a visual standpoint, this little spot up top here, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. You know, if you did have, like I said before, a double-bladed stiletto, that would sort of make a little bit of sense. And, you know, in the vein of a custom gents piece, I don't think that this would be such a negative thing for the way that you're going to use it. But for me, I just like to be able to get down on this, you know, the spine of the knife, the depression, and this just gets in the way, and it doesn't serve a purpose for me. So that's the biggest negative when it comes to the knife and the design. As far as the materials and the construction, let's get into that, because obviously if you're watching this and you're interested in this design, then this might not be a big deal for you, and so let's get into the rest of the details. We are rocking S35 VN on this blade. Pretty nice looking blade in terms of the finishing. I really like the way that the flat extends like really far. I mean, the detail there is pretty darn good. No real billboarding apart from the small Jason Clark logo, which has a lot of class to it, and then the Bestech logo, so that's definitely good. And it is just a good all-purpose kind of blade shape. The grind is a little bit low, so it does have that nice look to it. Is it going to be the most dominant performing knife? Certainly not, but small EDC tasks, absolutely. It's going to be just fine for that, and it will have a good role as a gents piece. Moving on back, let's take a look at the frame, and let's focus again on this bulkiness for just a second. For me, it's not a great thing. So I don't like how thick it is just in general. Again, if I'm looking at this as a knife that I would want, it would definitely be a gents piece. I would definitely want a slimmer profile. As you can see, it is a pretty thick knife. So it does have that going for it. I believe that the customs, if I remember right, were frame locks instead of liner locks, and so those might have been a little bit on the thinner side than this. But that said, I mean, it's just a good chunk. Again, not particularly like heavy and not dense, but it is bulky to some regard. All right, we have the titanium bolsters here, and then let's take a look at the scales, and I think we're catching it real nicely right now. So this is a carbon fiber and a lined carbon fiber. There are a few different variations that this comes in, and there's like a red and a brown. It almost looks like a wood composite. It is exquisite. I mean, what I said about the design, as far as, you know, not liking just the lines of the knife, that's one thing, but the materials used here and the way that they were executed is really, really nice. One other thing about the body of the knife that you might notice is you don't have a pivot. A lot of the Jason Clark knives that are out there, the pivot is beneath the liners. So you're not going to be able to get to it without taking the bolster here off, and then you can do your disassembly. I personally chose not to disassemble this knife. I was given permission to, and I just was nervous that if I screwed something up on this this very nice piece, then it would screw everything up for the people in the pass around. I think the second person in the pass around to get this. If you do want to see a disassembly video of this, the only other video I know of on YouTube of this model so far is from Love Them Knives, and he did a full disassembly. I haven't watched it because I like to get my own take before, you know, I watch anybody else's, so I'm not sure if he loved the knife or hated the knife or what the deal was with his video, but I know he did take it apart, so definitely check his video out if you want to see that. But getting back to these scales, I mean, they're just beautiful. The ridges here, the machining, it's really, really nicely done. I like this expression of carbon fiber a whole lot, and the other versions of it that I saw look really, really good too. All right, then you can see we have this backspacer, and we have a one-position pocket clip that is really, really pretty as well. Just done and executed nicely. So again, this is one where there's no visible screw, so that would probably have to be taken apart internally, which is fine. We have very nice centering here. Before we get into the action, I want to, well, there's some action, but before we get into the action, I want to sort of nitpick just a little bit. And it's not because I want to say that there are negative things about the knife, because I don't really see what I'm about to show you as a negative thing, but I know that this is a little bit of a more expensive material, a little bit more of a pricey knife, being over $200. I think it's going to be $212. So the people who are buying it and seeing the look and what this could represent might have certain levels of expectations that on even a $150 knife, you know, like you don't necessarily always have those expectations. And there are just a couple small little things, fit and finish things, that I noticed that you might want to be aware of if you're really looking for like perfect craftsmanship. Again, I'm saying positive things about the things that matter to me as far as the scales and this being really flush here and, you know, and that kind of stuff. But there are just a couple spots, and maybe you can see right here where we have this ridge where the liners meet the bolster, and it just isn't even. You know, you can see that this ridge is lower on the outside, and then it raises up for the liner. And over here, the liner's lower and then raises up. So, you know, there's just a couple little spots where it isn't quite perfect. You can see that here as well. Let me see if I can get it focused a little closer. Yep, so you can see that there, and, you know, it just isn't flawless, but it's pretty damn good. So, you know, and that's one of those things that again, when you're nitpicking a knife, like, you just come across them. And what I have to say, and I'm going to bring back the Chris Reeve. Now, let me preface what I'm about to say by acknowledging that Chris Reeve knives, there's a ton of attention to detail, a lot. They go really far above and beyond. They also charge a lot more than Bestech is charging for this knife. Completely understand the difference between a CRK and the Bestech Freefall, all right? But there's a lot more going on in terms of parts on this knife here, all right? I'm not saying anything about how exquisite of a detail job that they do in machining. I'm not trying to compare that. What I'm saying is that with the Chris Reeve, you have a couple slabs of titanium and you have your screws, and I mean, a lot of the work is done, certainly. Okay, let me rewind. There's a lot of finishing work done, yes, but a lot of the work is done, and there isn't too much in terms of fitting pieces together that has to, you know, be developed. You know, and this is something that Chris Reeve has done over the course of a long period of time. They've been doing this for a long time. Here we have a new model. And so, I don't know, what I'm getting at here, guys, is that you have a bunch of different pieces, a lot more screws. You have a liner lock. You know, you have a number of different things coming together. And so my tolerance for a little bit of a imperfection is going to be a lot higher. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, so now that I've pissed probably a lot of people off, let's move on with it. So Ergos, the Ergos of the knife, I mean, it's a comfortable knife, but you just don't have anywhere to put your thumb. So you could ramp back, but look at how far you are from the blade at that point. You could, you know, choke up, but then this is going to be sharp. You could choke up a little bit like this. It just doesn't have a spot on it at all where it's comfortable for extended use. So this is a small detail knife, a small, you know, detailed task, or just a quick cut, or opening some packaging, you know, breaking down one box, stuff like that. It's not something that you're going to use for any long period of time, and that's fine, you know. And hopefully there's an understanding about that when someone makes that purchase. All right, the action is pretty nice. It's good and snappy. Once you pass that detent, the dropping shut is pretty good. The front flipping aspect is doable, more than doable. So it has that going.
And now for 30 seconds of uninterrupted, unadulterated Bestech Freefall action. Fail. All right.
The action is pretty darn good. Lockup is super solid. We do have a stainless steel insert there, which I'm not sure you can, yeah, maybe you can see it right there. So So yeah, so that works just fine. The lockup is pretty darn good. So overall, guys, I mean, I like this knife a lot in terms of some of the things that it brings, but it just isn't the design for me. That's really, you know, the bottom line here. It's good to see Bestech executing something that I think is at a pretty darn high level. $212 might be a little bit stiff for a gents piece that's not going to get a lot of use for me. You know, if I'm going to spend that much money on a knife nowadays, it's going to be something that I'm going to want in the pocket all the time, and this just isn't that for me. But guys, do yourself a favor and check out Jason Clark Customs and see what he's got going on, because he's got some beautiful designs, and I think he's going to have more production knives coming that are based off of his designs. Not necessarily from Bestech, but stuff that you might be seeing a lot more of in the future. So that is very cool. Thanks again to Bestech for sending this for the pass around. I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts on this knife and any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions that you have on it. All right. Thank you again for watching. Take care and have a good one.